Greetings, members of the Military Order of the Stars and Bars. This is Executive Director John Trent. We're going to be covering a couple of classes here that will help you in doing your end of the year dues collection. This first one, we're going to go over the annual chapter report form. This is one that's submitted at the end of the year that will give us a snapshot of what your chapter has done and where it stands currently. If we begin at the top, we see we have the annual chapter report title, and then right below that there's a period ending December 31st, 20, and then you fill in the year blank. What we would want you to do is put the December 31st date of the year that you are completing this annual report. So in other words, if we're recording this in 2025, that should read period ending December 31st, 2025. That end date is important because you have to remember what you're doing at this point is you have to send this report into General Headquarters. At General Headquarters, we need to receive this report by January 15th or it's late. So we really do want you to capture a snapshot of what your chapter situation looks like on December 31st of the year that report is for. Okay, once you've completed the time period for the report or the date that it's being reported, right below that you'll see chapter name, number, and city, and those are pretty self-explanatory, so you'd go ahead and fill those in. The next section that we'll talk a little bit about is the commander and adjutant information. This information is really important in what we're doing as an organization. What we do from these reports is we create a list of all of our chapter commanders and adjutants, and then we can use that list as a communications tool whenever we need to get items out to you, such as your next year's due renewal, or if there's information at a chapter level like a credential that we need for an upcoming election at our annual reunion. So those are all situations in which this information becomes really important. So we want to have as current information as possible. So even if your information hasn't changed, please go ahead and fill all this out so we confirm that we have the correct information to be able to contact your chapter leadership. Let's jump over to the right-hand side of the form, and the first thing you're going to do in this section is check the box of the Army in which your chapter is located. Right below that, you see lines for the form is prepared by a printed name and a signature. Please go ahead and enter the printed name of the person who's submitting the report, who compiled the report, and a signature. If you've got a digital signature, that's fine in there too. It doesn't have to be handwritten. The next section we're going to take a look at is the member numbers. So this will be your report for your members from this year. In this section, you see numbers 1 through 9. And in section or line number 1, total members from last year. What would be ideal is for you to go back to your last year's report and take the total from number 9 from last year. So once you had done all your calculations from last year to get your total members in good standing on item 9 from last year, that would be the number that you would put in item 1 for this year. If you're a new chapter, and this is the first year that you would be reporting because you would not have had a previous report, on line 1, you just simply enter 0. The next line down is line 2, new members. This one again is pretty self-explanatory. Just enter any new members that have joined the organization and your chapter in the last year since your previous report. The next line down is line 3, transfers from other chapters. In this section, if you have somebody who was a previous member and they dropped several years ago as an example, and they want to be reinstated into your chapter. So if you've brought someone in like that since your last report, that would be included in there. Other members that would be included in there would be, as of your last report, if you had members that were delinquent, but they did pay their dues later in the year, they would go into this also. And then finally, if you have anyone who actually transfers from another outside chapter, all of those numbers would be added up and placed in line 3. In line 4, we're going to add up line 1, line 2, and line 3, and the total of those numbers are going to be put as your subtotal in line number 4. Okay, line 5 is one where we do see a bit of confusion sometimes. Line 5 reads, members delinquent. What we want you to put here is if you have had someone who was current, they were member in good standing as of your last report, and now they have not had their dues paid yet for this coming year. So it's getting close to December 31st. You need to get your report sent in, and they have not paid their dues yet. Then you would place those members in members delinquent. So they're currently delinquent as of today. Line 6 is transferred to other chapters. So in the last year since your previous report, you would put the number of members that you have that would fall into that category. So they transferred from your chapter to a different chapter within the last year. However, if you have members who have transferred to another chapter, but they were transferring in order to form a new chapter within your state, please be sure to make a note at the bottom of the page in the comments section. When we know that information, they didn't leave you to go to a different chapter as much as they went to start a new chapter. So you didn't lose those members, you actually gave them up so that we could start a new chapter. Line 7, member deaths. This one's pretty self-explanatory, but if you've had any members who have passed since your last report, so in the last year, you would put that number down in line 7. Line 8, subtotal, add lines 5 through 7. So just like we did for line 4 and line 8, we're going to go to members delinquent, which is line 5. Line 6, transferred to other chapters, and line 7, member deaths. And we're going to total up those 3 lines, and it goes as your subtotal in line 8. In line 9, we're going to determine our final number of members in good standing at this point whenever this report is being submitted. So we take the subtotal from line 4, and we subtract line 8 from line 4, and the number that we come up with we put in as our total for line 9. And that's going to be your members in good standing as of December 31st of the year that you're reporting. Okay, so we're going to jump over to the right-hand side of the form now and look at the section that starts with chapter meets. So we need you to check a box here just on the frequency that you schedule your chapter meetings, whether that be monthly, quarterly, whatever the case may be. Right below that, we see this reporting period, and the first line is number of meetings. So how many meetings did you have in this calendar year? So going back to your previous meeting, how many times did you meet since then? Same thing with the number of special meetings. Were there any special meetings that you had above and beyond your regularly scheduled chapter meetings? Below that is Memorial Day. So we want to know, when did your chapter select or choose to recognize Confederate Memorial Day? You can put a date or a month and a year in there. If you have a specific location that you use every year, that's fine too. And then finally, the meeting location. In this section or this line, we would like to know, when you have a chapter meeting, where is it that your chapter actually meets? The facility that you meet at, or whatever the location may be. Hey, real quickly, we'll touch on elections. So you'll see a section on the form that says elections. The first item that you see on there is officers are elected for a term of either 1 year or 2 years. Check the box. If you're unsure on that, it should be in your chapter bylaws on how often you should hold elections. And then right below that, you see officers take office in blank of 20 blank. So for the next election that you will be having, when are the officers going to be sworn in? So when's the next change of officers going to occur? And that's the information that you put in this section. The final section of the report is one where you can just make some general comments if it's going to help us process your report or understand what's going on with your chapter. And then also, we would like for you to list your accomplishments in this section here. Now, feel free to add an additional page. You can type it in, a word processor or however you prefer to do it, but get all the information in there that you think is relative. So again, in the general comments, you could put, we had 4 members that transferred, but they transferred to start a new chapter. And that again will key in, let me know, okay, we shouldn't hold that against this chapter because they didn't truly lose members. They gave up members to go start another chapter. But also in there, if there's any special projects that your chapter has completed for the year, if you donated some money to causes or anything that you think is relative and reflects the work of your chapter. These accomplishments do become important whenever we give an award for the outstanding chapter of the year. We do a first, second, and third place. And the best criteria that we can gather is from these reports. So if you don't include any of the accomplishments of your chapter, it's going to be pretty hard for us to be able to give you an award because you're really saying that your chapter hasn't done very much in the last year. One quick item that we'll mention here, since we've really gone through the entire annual chapter report, is if you need to amend your report, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure that you designate on the amended report that it is amended and send it to General Headquarters. If it's an amendment that's done after January 15th, then there's really no need to change that amendment. Okay, we're past the deadline. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you have a member that did not pay their dues by the December 31st deadline, but wham bam, here we are, January 2nd, they pay their dues. That would be within the time frame. It would be acceptable to amend your report because that person is still a member in good standing. They have until January 15th to take care of that. But really, once we hit that January 15th deadline, there's not a reason to file an amended report because your numbers are going to be where they ended up on January 15th. Finally, I want to take a moment just to tell you thank you. I appreciate you taking valuable time out of your day to watch this recording, and I hope it'll be an assistance to your chapter. If you have any further questions, don't hesitate to send me an email. And if we need to talk further on something, I can also give you a phone call. Hey, have a great day. Thanks a lot.